Welcome, 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 and happy summer. So excited we've made it, and I'm thrilled to be spending time with you today. If you are joining us live, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Feel free to enter in any comments, questions, general thoughts into the comment section, and we will get questions answered live. If you're watching the recording, welcome to you as well. And we will get to your questions after the fact. You can email me at melissa@rebelleevents.com, or you can chat through our website to get your questions answered quickly. So before we get going, again, thank you for joining us. We will be here every day this week, Monday through Friday, June 14th today, through Friday, June 18th at 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern. So join us. You'll be seeing a little sampling of everything, and we'll be looking forward to giving you ideas that you can use to really boost your programming as we re-enter in-person programming or explore hybrid programming, or if you're still virtual, we've got plenty of practice at that, and we're okay and willing to continue doing that as well as needed. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that all are welcome here. If you have any questions, if you need anything specific, again, feel free to chat, feel free to message me privately, but know that the goal of Rebelle Events is to leave each space we enter better than it was before we had been there. Our job and our goal and our mission is to bring people together through live events. So that's what we're doing here. And we hope that we allow you some entertainment, but also some sparking some interest as you begin planning for your fall and spring programming for orientation and beyond. With that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. He is a professional storyteller, workshop facilitator, motivational speaker, and artistic activist. Everyone, help me welcome Mr. Joseph Green. Hello. How are you?
Hi, Melissa. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
You can hear me. Okay, this is going to make this interview very difficult.
Hey,
I'm trying to fix my sound, and I don't know what to do to make it work. And that's super unfortunate because I'm super excited to be here.
We're going to come back to you. Hold on one second. So while he gets his stuff figured out, no problem, technical difficulties, that's what happens. I'm going to introduce our next, and we're going to put Joseph on deck, so sneak peek. Nadine Machkovech is another speaker joining us today. She's graced the TEDx stage. She's profiled in Forbes. She's received National Survivor Advocate recognition from the National Safety Council. And big news as of today, she is actually the executive director for Rise Together, an organization that prevents addiction and promotes positive mental health. So with that, I would like to welcome Nadine Machkovech. Hello.
Hi.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for bringing me on today.
Yeah, so I'm thrilled to have you. I'm thankful to be here together. I also just want to say a quick hi to Kelsey from Tarrant County College. I'm excited to talk to you here, even if it's virtually still. But anyway, okay, so Nadine, you have a whole lot that you tackle and that you talk about. Let's start. Just tell me what kind of your bread and butter is. What fills your cup when you're speaking to college students across the country?
So for me, one of the biggest things that I enjoy, and that I found great passion and purpose in, is being able to share my story and speak my truth and be able to find that relatability with young people, more specifically around recovery. And I believe today recovery comes in many different forms, and for me, more specifically around substance use recovery. I am a person in long-term recovery. I was able to step into my recovery journey at the age of 20. So before I could even legally step foot in a bar, and as somebody that is from Wisconsin, that is almost unheard of. And I was really proud to be able to find a pathway for me so early on in my young adult life. And so being able to find and share that story, around addiction recovery and how I've been able to show up and take good care of myself over the last several years so I can continue to show up and serve my community, which, like you said before, as the stepping into the executive director role for Rise Together, I am beyond honored and excited, and that is a direct result of my recovery today.
So I love what you say, Nadine, about how do you show up for yourself so that you can show up for your community? It's so much more than simply, a traditional recovery message. To me, it seems like more well-rounded, more whole mind, whole body sort of approach.
Absolutely. I believe that everybody's recovery journey looks different. And when you're able to take that whole or holistic approach, when you are looking at the whole body, your body, meaning your mind, your physical body, your soul, your spirit, and especially for me, like your physical body, and is directly related to your mental health. And so how you're showing up and taking care of yourself in all different forms. And I believe for me, I was fortunate and grateful that I was able to really seek out what worked well for me, because everybody uses for different reasons, everybody copes in different ways, and it's the same for recovery. Everybody recovers differently. And so what's so beautiful, and for me, what I was able to find early on, is that there's multiple pathways to recovery. And being able to identify what best serves you and what you need to show up as your best, healthiest self is what I love guiding and directing people to do.
I love that. Thank you. So another thing that we've talked about, and I've talked about with folks who have booked you for both in-person and virtual events, is that your approach isn't necessarily to support simply those, you're a recovery coach. So you can walk with people through that journey. However, you can also work through the community as being someone who understands. You say you have a PhD in life as somebody who understands, right, what it is to deal with addiction from the other side, as someone who loves and supports someone. So I think that your whole approach to the situation, it's not just for those who struggle, but rather also for everyone, even if it's those who simply want to support the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even if we look at addiction today, it impacts 1 in 3 households. And so most or majority of our family members or friends or coworkers or peers, somebody is struggling in some form. And I think the greatest thing that I've been able to help people identify, especially as parents or family members, is how are you taking care of yourself first? Again, it kind of goes back to that conversation of how are you showing up for yourself first, to show up for your community and to show up for your family. And for me, especially this last year, and I know a lot of our community members are grieving and going through changes of loss and different experiences that have happened. And one of the biggest things that I know that has worked well for me as somebody that has even lost significant family members over this last year, one of the ways that I've been able to continue moving forward is by taking care of myself.
That's great. Very important. Well, Nadine, thank you for joining us. I'm glad to have you as a part of our showcase today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. For anyone watching, if you have questions along the way, friendly reminder to send us a note in the meantime while we're here together. So I'm going to say goodbye. See you later.
Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to add, not only as an educator, speaker, storyteller, but also a trainer. And so if anybody is ever interested in that recovery coaching model, if you're willing to looking for more information, like you said, just to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, Nadine.
Thanks.
All right. So I'm so glad you're here. I just want to give another couple of shout outs. Hi, Jamie. In addition to Kelsey here, glad you're here. And to anyone watching the playback, hi to you too. Okay, so we are going to go back to Joseph. We're going to see if we're all systems are a go. I love this. This is real life. It's live, everybody. This is how live events roll. So Joseph, welcome back.
It's working. Can you hear me?
I can.
Outstanding. Thank you to my mate here at we can't see. That was so nice of you to help me fix this. So thank you.
To those of you viewing, I have the rest of our showcasers backstage. They came through with the VIP backstage tech help too. So takes a village sometimes. So I'm grateful for everything. That was pretty fantastic. So Joseph, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I know you have so many different kind of avenues you take when you visit folks both virtually and in person. So tell me what's your favorite message to share or topic to discuss?
Whew, that's a good question, because I do think it can be focused to one thing, right? It comes from many directions. I speak from many of the different personal experiences that I've had in my life. But when it comes down to it, I think my message is our story is the most important thing we have in our toolkit when it comes to creating connectivity and empathy and understanding with other groups of people. So whether I'm talking about diversity, inclusion, and equity, whether I'm talking about self-care or mindfulness training, or if I'm talking about my work in prevention also and recovery, it all centers around being able to empower people through my story to be better connected to their story so that they can become better connected to their community.
That's great. That's great. Now, tell me, when you're on campus, or I know the reviews that I've received, the shows that I've booked you are always, sometimes we work off of a no news is good news. However, many times after the shows that we've booked together, I received we didn't realize that we could be so engaged, either virtually, though you could hear pin drop, or on the other side of it, people were so engaged. That doesn't usually happen for speaking events, things like that. So I appreciate how you take the time to, as performers do, right, as entertainers do, to read the room, right, and to meet people where they are. Yeah,
I feel like a lot of it has to do with the fact that my background is in theater. And so I have been performing and in front of people and in relationship with audiences since I was 4 years old. And then you add to that being a professional spoken word artist and storyteller, and you take the fourth wall away. And I've been, for the last 15 years, engaged with audiences where I've had to be able to tell my story as I planned it, but also to be present enough in the room to change vocal inflections or maybe take a part out if I thought that it wasn't working. And then you add to that I facilitated over 5,000 workshops, writing workshops, creative writing workshops, poetry workshops, DEI workshops, mindfulness workshops over the past 10 years. And I feel like I'm just really blessed to be at a point where I can bring all of those tools together to work for the audience that I'm speaking to. And more than that, I also take the time to speak with every audience, every person that brings me in, to find out what's going on in your school. Why did you think the program that you're bringing is necessary? And ultimately, how do you want the audience to feel? Or what do you want them to be activated to do by the time that we're done? And so when you add all of that together, I think that is why I'm doing well with providing schools with a level of engagement that is more than they're accustomed to. That's great. So you mentioned poetry, and I've heard a lot of your, your keynotes are really powerful. You can go to the website that I had shown before. I can share that again if you need to see the different topics, whether or not it's DEIA or mindfulness, or if it's just, or if, asterisk other, if there's something in particular you want to help with addressing and bringing together, even just professional development and things like that. But I am going to give the stage to you to share something more. Yeah, thank you for that. So whether it's DEIA, whether it's creative mindfulness or mindfulness self-care to prevent burnout, whether it's how to create courageous and brave spaces for difficult conversations pertaining to a myriad of ideas, or just welcoming young people into the space so that they feel more comfortable as new students or returning students, using their story to bring themselves closer to the folks on campus in a time in our world where there's such divisiveness in our politics and conversation. I think no matter what it is I am brought there to speak about, I always bring my story with me, and I bring that in the form of traditional storytelling, and I also am an award-winning spoken word artist, and it's a great way to break the ice, or sometimes just put a button on the event. But bringing art and my story in, I think, allows people the freedom to have their light shine and makes them a little less scared, because I would never ask anyone to do something I wasn't willing to do myself. That being said, I have a poem that I would like to perform to end my time here with you all. I hope you enjoy it. It is dedicated to my grandmothers and is about my personal story and their story, and I hope you enjoy it. My story is a freedom song of struggle. It is about finding one's purpose, how to overcome fear, and to stand up for causes bigger than oneself. Coretta Scott King. I am a storyteller, but like all of us, I have not always had control over my own story. Most of it was written before I was born by people I will never know personally, like the stranger that told my grandfather after his near-fatal car accident in the hills of West Virginia that his black ink spilt wasn't good enough for the stain-free pages of a white hospital. His heart failed a few years later. There's an ellipsis at the end of his sentence. My grandmother picked up my grandfather's pen, wrote the next few years of my father's life like, ain't nobody gonna tell my son's story but family. Traveling back and forth from South Carolina to New York City, cleaning houses and doing hair to this day. Those who do not want to recognize their role in this will try to sell you the narrative that poor people are lazy, that everyone is born with bootstraps, boots, and arms, that the only difference between the meek and the mighty is willpower. These people do not believe in privilege or ghostwriters, or that someone would ever intentionally create systems of oppression, but that is a different story for another day. My other grandmother was written into this world as the wife of a sharecropper, an abusive man that my mother chose to name me after, a truth I used to resent. But now I think she did it so I would always know that no matter a person's backstory, eventually we can all be the primary author of our own character. My grandmother etched forgiveness into my family's DNA before I even knew how to hold a pen, practiced compassion and empathy with the expert skill of a calligrapher as a child. I watched her care for a man ravaged by old age and disease, the same man that tormented his family so effectively that my mother joined the military 1 week after her high school graduation, an unfortunate but familiar plot development for many poor people seeking to escape violence, only to join an organization that wages violence on the poor people of other nations. But that is another story for a different day. Today, future generations are looking back at us. What story will we leave for them? Will they spend their lives trying to make sense of our ramblings, or will they inherit the clear message we begin writing here today? Both my grandmothers ripped meaning from between the lines of my parents' story, used their morals learned to tattoo tales of survivals on their palms, the same palms that authored me a herald, scripted me a revolutionary, plotted me a freedom fighter. Today, we stand in the shadows of a million grandmothers in their names, and the names of those yet capable of writing their own stories. I wonder, what are we willing to sacrifice? What ink are we willing to spill? Thank you, and I look forward to meeting all of you in person sometime soon.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you, Melissa.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So before we keep going, I just want to challenge you to kind of imagine how to utilize any of the folks that you see today or this week, even if you're unsure as to what your programming plans are in the coming months. So I know that so we're all so ready to get back together, and the world's coming back and all of that good stuff. But if you do still have to think about virtual programming, please know that we do definitely continue to have those solutions. If you want to offer a hybrid version, especially for those folks who might wish to consume your campus activities a little bit different, please let us know. We absolutely can discuss how we make hybrid events work for the folks that you see today and this week and beyond that as well. So, and also all of the folks you see today are more than willing to travel to you if their schedule allows. So, thank you, Jamie. I'm glad you enjoyed Joseph's time. As we get going, I'm excited to introduce you to your next speaker. We've got 2 more speakers for you, and then we'll send you on your way until tomorrow, and we'll meet back here tomorrow. Your next speaker is a professional stand-up comedian and foster care alum. He's appeared on Comedy Central, NBC, E!, Netflix, MTV, VH1, so much more. Please help me welcome, or at least via chat, help me welcome Monroe Martin. Hello, Monroe.
Hey, what's going on, Melissa?
How are you? It's good. I cannot wait to see you in person again. God, I miss you. Sorry, I just had to geek out a little bit. It's nice to hear your voice.
Same. You too. You too. We've only been communicating via text and email.
I know, it's ridiculous. Well, it's good to see you. So, tell me how your spring was. Are you a person who gained new quarantine skills, or were you in the survival? I was in the survival camp. I had no time for new skills. I was just getting by. Which camp are you in?
I actually used this time to focus on myself. I started working out more. My wife had bought a small little treadmill, and it had a weight limit, and I was past that weight limit. So in order for me to use it, I had to lose weight. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be too big to use the treadmill. So I started going outside and walking more and running more. And then I was like, well, then I don't need the treadmill. I could just do this on my own. But I use this time to cook more and read more and actually just start being more introspective.
All right.
And just, you know what I mean? Trying to figure out what makes you tick.
Oh, that's a heavy lift, right? You got to be really honest with yourself.
Because not too many people get time to themselves, especially in this world of entertainment. You're always giving. But when everything shut down, it's like, all right, so what do I actually know about myself? What do I like? You know what I mean? What do I know? What do I want to learn? How can I get better as a friend, as a performer, as a husband? Now just focused on those things.
Those are big things.
Yeah, and I became another pet owner. I got a dog. You've seen the dog.
Hey, I'm gonna skip ahead a couple banners so that y'all can get Monroe's social media. But if you need to see one of the cutest dogs I've ever seen in my life, I've had to text Monroe about this dog several times. It's very cute. So you are getting back up on stage in person.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
It's got to feed the soul.
Well, the thing is, I don't know if I'm snitching on myself, but comedy really didn't disappear that much in New York. We were doing shows outside and apartments on rooftops and stuff like that. So I still had the ability to work that muscle and work on material and also not go crazy, because a lot of people didn't have an outlet where they can vent and speak to people and just get their emotions out. And I had that.
That's awesome. And true professional, the show must go on. And
absolutely.
And you still got to get up there and practice and do your time and keep writing. I love it. And we had our Zoom comedy shows.
Oh, absolutely. I actually like doing those a lot. I know a lot of people were scared to do them, but I preferred to do it. I'm I get to be home. I get to sit in my favorite chair and lean back and then just talk about life. I actually like doing it a lot. I kind of when people started asking me to come to their shows, I'm like, is there a Zoom element? Is there an online portion? Can I do this in my pajamas, please?
So in part of your introspection, I know this isn't something that just came about now. You know what I mean? This isn't new. This is something you've been working on for a long time.
Yes.
But you are also now speaking, and the title of your presentation is called System Failure.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about, well, I know, but tell our viewers and those watching the recording what it's all about.
Well, the title System Failure actually came from a little phrase that I always would hear growing up in foster care. Whenever something bad happened to a kid, like when the kid got arrested or he ended up homeless, they would say, oh, the system failed that kid. And the system failed that kid, but it was also because that kid didn't have the resources to truly succeed and reach their goals. And I came from that. I grew up in foster care, spent 14 years in foster care, bounced around a bunch of different homes, in and out of group homes and behavioral clinics and other residential facilities. And nobody, including myself, would have thought that I would end up being a successful comedian in the entertainment business, being married, and giving back. And I felt like I failed the system by making something of myself. So I like to title that the System Failure because I felt like it was a good play on words. Like, I beat you.
Gotcha. I love it. I'm putting all the party hat emojis into the chat right now for that. That's good. So one of my favorite things about your presentation is how you, there's not a lot of folks coming to campus telling your story.
Yes.
Right. And but there are a lot of people on campus who might share some of your experiences.
Absolutely. That was one of the things that got me into opening up about my upbringing, because in comedy, when you first start off, you talk about what you see and things you experience, and you call that being honest. But I had a mentor who challenged me. It was like, you should be honest. Talk about your upbringing. Talk about coming from a household where your mom was addicted to drugs, your dad was in and out of prison, and then going to people's homes where they actually kind of like did the same thing, And when I started talking about that, I felt like I allowed myself some freedom to let go of those things. I wasn't holding them on. I wasn't holding on to them so much where they was actually causing me anger, where I didn't want to admit I was a foster child. And to the point where people would be like, who's that? And I'm like, that's my aunt. And I'm not related to that person at all. But I was so embarrassed of like telling people, oh, I grew up in foster care. But by me talking about it in stand-up actually allowed me to just like open up. And then more people started going, I went through the same thing, or I had a family member that went through that. And then talking to you, I was like, I think that I should just do this more aside from comedy, just allow myself to share my story and let other people feel empowered by sharing their story as well, and not feeling like a victim and feeling like they got to hide and feeling like they missed out on something. Because I felt like, because I didn't grow up with the traditional background, that I didn't have the family experience. It was like I did. It was just that was my family experience.
Yeah, right. Yep. And people are attracted. I think I'm attracted to authenticity. And even if it's a new perspective for me, I think it's, that perspective that you share is so valuable and important, right? In order to generate more understanding and information. It's just
a lot of people don't know about foster care. For the amount of children that are in foster care, there are about like 424,000 children that enter foster care a year. And I'm like, that's a high number for people to still be ignorant and not know what foster care is. So I feel like I'm paying it forward, spreading the information, and also allowing people to know that just because it's not just about foster care. It's also about like, hey, if you come from this chaotic world, or even if your world is chaotic now, it doesn't mean you have to truly let it affect you. You can rise up from that and really like move toward your dreams and be persistent. And
outside chaos and adversity is something that everyone can maybe relate to in small doses in one way or another. So you give them a face to a moment as like, if he can do it, maybe I can give it a go.
Yeah.
Well, Monroe, thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for joining us. And I love the work you're doing, and I think you're funny as hell. And I'm so excited to get you back on some college stages or Zooms, whatever.
Yeah, hey, whatever is available. I'm down to do it. I love talking.
Yeah, right. Well, everybody go follow Monroe and take a peep at that cute dog of his. And I hope you have a lovely day.
You too.
Thanks, Monroe. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So if you're still with us, thanks so much. I'm really excited. I have one more guest to share with you, some quick announcements, and we'll wrap it up. But our next guest is our resident technical expert and also a journalist, author, and also comedian who has been seen on Jimmy Fallon, Last Comic Standing, and she's got a whole lot of fun, exciting things in the works as well. So with that, I would like to welcome to the screen, Chloe Hilliard. Welcome.
What's going on? How are you?
I'm great. Good to see you, Chloe.
Good to see you too.
You hear I'm so excited, that's what Monroe. I need to see people.
I know we're at that stage now. Like pandemic is like almost behind us, and we're like, oh, I forgot I miss people. I like people. I want to see people again. So I'm excited.
I'm okay with social distancing in some cases, but I definitely am really excited for some fun. So it's good to see you. So you have a bazillion and one things in the works.
Yes.
All the time. And I love that about you. So let's talk about your book and the comedy and conversation that goes along with that.
Yeah, so that's my book right there. F Your Diet and Other Things My Thighs Tell Me. It's a collection of essays about my experience with body image and body weight. I was a big kid growing up. I was 6'1" at the age of 12. I have not grown an inch since. I can't believe it. And I'm way past 12. And basically it talks about how my life growing up was influenced by what I ate, how I looked, and how the world perceived me. And as a former journalist, I also include a lot of facts and figures in that as well to help illustrate to people who may not consider themselves to be dealing with food or weight issues to see how politics and policy and economics and, resources influence what we have access to in this country. And then it helps you realize that it's a little bit more complicated than just saying, don't eat that, don't eat this. There's certain things that people have to deal with in life that others don't when it comes to having access to healthcare and food and, gyms and all that stuff. So the response I've gotten to this book over the past year has been a wide range of support. There's definitely people who are saying that my life resonated with them and it made them relate, which is music to my ears because, you always think that you're the only one whenever you're dealing with something, especially traumatic, like, being a fat kid, you're like, I'm the only one who's ever, and people are like, no, I've been through this too. So it's been nice to meet like-minded people who have gone through the struggle or are coming to embrace themselves and love themselves. And it's an ongoing journey. I don't want people to think that I wrote a book and all of a sudden I'm just like, satisfied and fulfilled with everything in my life. You're always constantly growing and challenging and learning and adjusting. So it's just one of those things where it's like, give yourself space and grace to deal with your triggers and your issues and find a way to heal as you grow older.
Oh, all of that. I have personally read and listened to your book, and I really enjoyed both. I read it first, and listening to it was like story time with Chloe anyway. So that was that was nice. But I agree. Even as someone who has, I feel like it was a message I could have used when I was in college for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
And you're another one. We receive reviews after your shows that are life-saving reviews. I mean, the connection and the need for people to hear it's worth going on. You're not alone. This is all really important.
Yes. And with this past year, we were doing these talks about my book before the pandemic started. And one of the things that's kind of taken on new life is the topic of like mental health, right? And so we were asked, Rebelle Events were asked to customize the speech for Fuck Your Diet to include mental health. And so I find that really easy to include because a lot of it went hand in hand when we talk about depression, whether it's seasonal or acute depression, when we're talking about people seeking therapy or learning how to communicate about their feelings. I put a lot of facts and figures in there to just kind of illustrate how a lot of people are dealing with self-esteem issues, not just folks who are dealing with weight issues. And so I think if you're dealing with something where you are judging or undermining your self-worth, this is a conversation that may be able to help you find the language that you need in order to seek out the help from others in your community.
Right. And in your conversation, you talk a lot about the intersectionality of being a Black woman, and like you'd mentioned, access to certain things and that sort of thing too, that, a lot of white folks don't have to worry about or haven't had to worry about it. So, shines a giant light on that too, with regards to healthcare and access and that sort of thing, which leads me to your other program that was, especially this year, received wide success. It was not developed this year. It was pre-pandemic, but Don't Be a Karen, in a conversation about entitlement and privilege.
Yes, and how to be an ally, right? And so, there was a moment when it was a fever pitch during these past couple years, and it kind of crescendoed during the pandemic with people taking to the streets. And that got to show you just how fed up people were with the system and injustice and racism, because they were willing to take to the streets during a pandemic to be heard and to be seen. And so it really helped facilitate the conversation a little bit more, because let's just be honest, when we first came up with this idea of going out with this topic, some schools were a little apprehensive, right? They didn't know how it would resonate with their student body or even their, higher ups. But then as it became more of a conversation, the demand for it was even greater. And I want to be honest, there was definitely some pushback when we had conversations. There was definitely people who would, file a note or a complaint. And I will just say honestly that anytime that happened, which was very rare, we can count on like one hand how many times that happened, but it did happen. And I say it in the speech, I say, this conversation may be triggering. It's a safe space. I'm not placing any blame. I'm just presenting facts and figures and historical incidents to help illustrate the hardships that people of color have in this country, and the ways in which you can use your voice as a white person to help evoke change. And not most of the time, every single time we had an incident where someone pushed back, the schools themselves defended the talk, right? We didn't even have to defend ourselves. The schools said, we invited this conversation. We wanted our student body to have this. Some schools even enacted us to do a workshop program. So we would go back several times and help facilitate conversations for their student leaders to illustrate how to address situations that happen on campus. So it's an evolving conversation. It definitely changes. I hope that people still want to have this conversation. I know people think just because the last president is out and we got a new president, things are like peachy keen, but there's still a lot of growing and learning and understanding that we need to have. So hopefully we can continue to have the conversation.
Yeah, and you are such a beautiful, you said safe space, that's it, but you are such a comfortable person to be delivering this message, because you are judge free. You don't ask the questions, right? And I like how you come in and it's not meant to be, well, we had the conversation, we're done, right? We got to keep talking about it. We have to keep talking about it now more than ever, because when people get comfortable, that's when we need to push a little harder. So
absolutely.
Well, Chloe, thank you so much. I love everything that you do. I'm glad to see your lovely face and hear your voice.
You.
Can't wait to see you in person. Great. Well, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. And thank you all for supporting us and tuning in and supporting live comedy and hard conversations and educational symposiums, because we need to keep, this community sharing going and just building to be a better society.
Yes. Thanks, Chloe. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. And there we have it for day one of our little snack-sized summer showcase. If you didn't see everything you need, don't worry, there's more. We have more speakers. We can talk about leadership development. We can talk about emotional intelligence. We can talk about career readiness. You'll hear from Natalie Keller-Periano later on this week. She can talk about some different orientation leader programs that she has with regards, especially being a former student activities professional. We also have Catherine Bosley, who has some really incredible real world experience with regards to social media safety, digital safety. She also has some tremendous programs around career readiness and coaching and things like that. And if you're looking for some cultural programs with regards to, like I was saying, emotional intelligence and psychological safety, we've got a former VP of Walt Disney World, Scott Novus, who has an amazing program called Culture Kitchen. That's really fabulous too. So with that, that's it. I'm so excited to see you. I'm glad you were here. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, melissa@rebelleevents.com, or I'll see you tomorrow and we can answer them there too. Have a great day, everybody.